who is Matthew Caldwell? That's going to become a centerpiece story for the Longhorns, who are going to play their first home game in 42 days. Horns at Half Past brought to you by Dr. Greg Eckert. We've told you, Texas got through spring practice. They had Arch Manning, who was a first-year starter. They had KJ Lacey, a true freshman from Alabama. And they had Trey Owens, at the time, coming out of spring, and still is, I guess. He's in his sophomore year, but he's a redshirt freshman. The three had combined for 2 all-time starts. So wisely, Texas said, you know what, we really need a veteran quarterback. We need an adult in the room, and we need someone who can play the same offense that Arch is going to run, because neither of the other 2 guys are able to do that as far as the offense, the evolution of the offense from Quinn Ewers to Arch, and bringing his legs into the picture and his quarterback run game to go with the passing game. And so they went and they identified Troy quarterback Matthew Caldwell, and
formerly of Jacksonville State and Gardner-Webb.
Well, he never actually played at Jacksonville State. He committed to Jacksonville State and then ended up at Gardner-Webb, where he played. That's the way I read it. He committed to Jacksonville State originally. I don't know if he ever played there, but first time he played was Gardner-Webb, and then he went to Troy. And, this is where Texas is on. Because, again, it's hard to find backup quarterbacks on the market right now. They become starting quarterbacks somewhere. Nobody wants to go sit in college football right now and back anybody up. They don't have to. So they'll search and find a spot. But so Caldwell, he didn't begin starting as a senior transfer as a player at Troy until the second half of last year. And when he did, he finished with 1,608 yards, 13 touchdowns. He did throw 8 interceptions. Like Manning, though, what they liked about it is Caldwell can run. And he had 5 rushing touchdowns for Troy in the final 4 games, and they were 3 wins. So he showed some leadership intangibles. And he showed up here with 1 year of eligibility left. Here is Sark yesterday when asked about Matthew Caldwell, why they liked him, and what they saw to identify and say could be the guy we bring in to add a 4th quarterback to our quarterback room.
I think, like, to my point, he's a guy that has been in a variety of systems. He has athleticism. He throws a really good ball. What I liked about him on his visit was probably the biggest thing was just his demeanor, his approach to it. It didn't seem too big for him here. He didn't feel entitled by any means. He was a guy who just wanted an opportunity, and that's what we were looking for, a guy who had taken some snaps in college football. And then that's how he's performed, since the day he got here. That's the way he's worked at it throughout camp and throughout the season, and he's making the most of his opportunities. He's played well every time that we've put him in the game, whether it's been at the end of games with the long runs, with the passes, whether it's been at Florida where he had to come in and throw a ball to Ryan Wingo on an in-cut, whether it was this game. And so, what gives me confidence is who he's been, and so feel very comfortable with Matt whenever he's in the ball game.
All right, so obviously we'll monitor it. As we've said, there's a bye week after Vanderbilt. And, you want your best for – but if Arch Manning, because in the protocol, can't get any reps during the week as you're installing the game plan, and you have a bye week after that, we know the medical experts will tell us that, brain injuries, you got to let them fully heal. They're not something you rush back from. I will say South Carolina's Lenora Sellers earlier this year suffered a concussion or was in the protocol, and he actually started a game 1 week later and actually played very well. But, again, that was Shane Beamer and his medical people's decision. I don't know what Texas's will be here. But, again, everything we've been told and learned is because there's still so much unknown about the brain and head injuries. If it's not fully – if you don't give it a full – it's a bruise of the brain, essentially. I mean, you have a contusion or some type of head injury on the inside, and you're more susceptible and you suffer another concussion easier if you don't let it fully heal.
Yes.
And we'll get our good doctor on and talk about that this week if we get to that point. But it kind of sounds to me early, if he's in the protocol on Monday not practicing, that it would be trending towards with 2 and then the week off to Georgia. And again, the other part of that is, you want reps. If you have a veteran quarterback who's performed well every time he's come in and he's going to get the full go with the first teamers, and it's not like Arch Manning has lit it up all year, right? What we saw in the fourth quarter and overtime of the game with Mississippi State's the best he's looked all year long. I mean,
right.
the Oklahoma game was his best. Like I said this to Jack in our last hours, Horns at Half Past, what we saw from Texas in the fourth quarter is that was the reason. That's the team people voted number 1 in the country in the preseason. That's that team that we hadn't seen much all year, all this year. where Arch he was growing up in front of our very eyes through all the ups and the downs and the struggles. The defense was locking it up. The special teams was great. And the Arch is slinging it to an array of receivers. And, that's why it sucks that he may not be able to play in this game, because you finally saw that. Okay, that's the team that was, that's the number one team in the country right there. And they looked like it for a quarter. And I know Mississippi State was out of gas a little bit, but either way, did you find it? Because people say, well, it can't just click. Well, it clicked for a quarter, and everything was clicking. The question is, for this particular game against Vanderbilt, what gives you the best chance to win the game? And Arch Manning, who is dealing with this and might not practice much this week, or a guy in Matthew Caldwell who's been around, who can run the same offense and hopefully run the offense. Because, again, outside of that quarter, it's not like Arch has been lighting it up with the offense. And you're still going to win this game with defense, with special teams, with efficient, chain-moving offense. And as Sark said yesterday, this is a game where you may only get 50 or 60 plays.
Right.
I mean, because they like to control the ball. They're in a. You may get 8 possessions in this game, like 2 a quarter, where you have the ball. So you do have to be efficient with them. You have them, and that the one thing Texas has not been at all this year, outside of the Oklahoma game from the second quarter on, is efficient, where they go on these long sustained drives and they keep the ball for long periods of time. They're explosive. Like even at Mississippi State on Saturday, Noah, that first 2-play drive took like a minute. And then, they had one other, and then they had another screen pass to Ryan Wingo that went for big points, big yards. But other than that, they were clunky and not efficient and 3 and out. And that's why their defense was just getting worn out in that game. And this is a game where you can't waste possessions.
You cannot. No.
And
they'll wear you out again.
And I'll give
they can be methodical.
I'll give you the Missouri game as an example. Missouri, that game was 10-10 into the inside the 2-minute warning. And Missouri, if they had kept their quarterback healthy, would have had a chance. But Bo Perbula got hurt, and they didn't have him. But again, they still had it as a 10-10 game, and that's kind of what I would predict this to be. If you're Texas and you're going to win it, you're gonna keep the game in the teens. You're going to control the ball with Matthew Caldwell, and it feels like to me he can do everything Arch can do right now. I mean, Arch has a much higher ceiling as a quarterback down the road, but right now it seems to me that he did throw 8 interceptions last year in half a season, so that's too many. But that's concerning because you can't turn the football over. But obviously a decision will be made as the week goes on. It's only Tuesday, but I guess if you made me bet right now, I'd bet Matt Caldwell, number 18's out there. But I'll just say again what I said on Monday about him coming off the bench cold after 4 hours of watching a game and being that locked in and making that check and making that throw, ice cold. I like him, man.
Yeah,
I like that. That tells me because
yeah.
It would have not been shocking to see. And how about Sark calling a pass play for him? We're in overtime here. Was this kid going to go in there and pee down his leg? You never know. And there he is, and he just coolly, calmly makes a great throw and a game-winning touchdown pass to Emmett Mosley after checking out of a slant route into a fade route. And that's okay. That guy's engaged, man. That guy's paying attention. That guy was ready to go. I might lean into trusting him to try to get you a win at home against Vanderbilt.
He seems calm and collected. I mean, we've seen small sample sizes
right.
only come in a few games. Obviously, the last game being Mississippi State where he threw that dot. I'm excited to see if he is going to be the quarterback. Obviously, you want Arch to be okay, but don't force this or push this because I think Matthew Caldwell brings enough where if he does what he's supposed to do, there's a chance you can win this game. There's a reason you're favorite.
And it's also there's a little criticism of Arch there because Arch has been very inconsistent. So
yes.
If you can just
it's a roller coaster with
there's
him,
almost
right?
a
there's
point,
high highs and low lows.
Man, it is absolute Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
Even in the game we just saw, but at the same time, which one's the good and bad? Jekyll's the good,
Dr.
Hyde's
Jekyll
the bad.
or Dr.
He's the good.
Yeah, he's the good.
Hyde's
the doctor's
bad.
good, right?
Well,
Mr. Hyde.
He was all Jekyll in the fourth quarter. He was high. But again, if Matthew Caldwell can come in and just be consistent and not be erratic and be confident, he's going to have to play behind the same offensive line that may not have a running game against Vanderbilt. So all these things have to be taken into account. All right, so we're only Tuesday. We got all week. It's a top 20 matchup. Longhorns are ranked again, of course, and climbing. They're 6-2, 3-1 in each month so far. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt's one of the best teams in the country with a 7-1 record. Their only loss was a really hard-fought game at Alabama. About that, and that was their last road game, by the way, the trip into Bama. And then they've been in a bye week and then at home for LSU and Missouri. Won both of those ball games to get to 7-1.